Bloop, bloop. This is the real Romanay, and this is the real Romanay.
Featuring Christopher. What it do, baby?
Where we chilling, chit-chatting, and chopping it up about real issues, real people, real topics, and hopefully real solutions.
We gonna figure it out today.
Recently, Chrisean and Blueface have entered the media, right? Yeah. By storm.
Like they've taken it over.
By storm, right?
Everywhere you look, you see toothless hoes.
Things have looked so dysfunctional in the relationship that it appears that social media has officially tagged them the new Bobby and Whitney.
Bobby.
So with that being said, I thought that it was appropriate. I thought it was a really great idea, to be honest with you, to start the podcast off, to launch the podcast with the topic of toxic relationships.
Okay. Have you ever been in a toxic relationship?
How do we identify them? Well, we're not talking about me yet.
But
maybe
I'm curious.
At some point in the conversation today, we'll get to me. And yes, I have been.
Have you? Oh,
absolutely.
Well,
I think if everybody's honest, they'll be honest and say that they have been in a toxic relationship.
I mean, it's natural. I mean, we live in the 21st century. Things happen. People have sometimes hurt other people sometimes, right? But
it's not natural, but it's a reality. Right? It's a reality.
Okay.
It happens. You look up. You know, women are emotional anyway, right?
Very.
And so women don't really know how to be intimate with a man and get up from that act of intimacy and not be emotionally invested, right? So at that point, if you haven't really assessed the dynamic in the relationship, you could find yourself in a toxic relationship. Oftentimes, men don't even show all those toxic traits until they kind of bagged you, right? And then after they bag you, then all these toxic characteristics start to surface. So the first thing that I thought we needed to do was to help everybody understand what a toxic relationship means. And that's just any kind of relationship that makes you feel unhappy. If you find yourself in a relationship where you are consistently disrespected, if you find yourself in a relationship that's built on dishonesty, if you find yourself in a controlling relationship, or in a relationship where you don't feel like you're supported, right? Those are all characteristics of a toxic relationship.
Okay. So
what's up with you? You been in a toxic relationship?
No, I'm actually hashtag healthy relationship. That's actually what I'm dealing with. But I can say, you know, and from the different takes that we did this evening, you kept asking me, you know, what is your viewpoint on toxic relationships? I think it's weakness. I think it's you're too weak to make a decision to leave the comfort zone. Because a lot of the things you talked about just now was, you know, being disrespected, being in unhealthy communication, unhealthy things like that. But then if you look at Blueface and Chrisean, they're in wedding dresses and in tuxedos. They like it. So my question is it truly toxic in that sense? So I'm going to pose that question. Is it truly toxic what they're doing? Because they might fight, they might beat up each other's parents, they might smack each other, they might miss a tooth, but at the end of the day, they sit at the nail salon and get their feet done together. They're up doing photo shoots together. So is it truly toxic?
Well, here's why you'd have to ask the question about it being really toxic. First of all, when people are in something, right? When we're actively involved in something, it's kind of hard for us to see toxicity or hard for us to see dysfunction, because when you're involved in something, you're entrenched in something, guess what? That's normal for you. So what you're seeing with Chrisean and Blueface is their normal. That's their normal. But from the outside looking in, right, we can look at it and say, this is not normal. It is nothing normal about 24-hour-a-day drinking. There is nothing normal about 24-hour-a-day physical altercations. There is nothing normal about Chrisean being in a studio trying to do a podcast somewhere and being so drunk. What did they call it? They called it coming off the Henny, right? Being so drunk, inebriated, that when things don't go the way she wants them to go on set, she's destroying the set, right? That's not normal. But for Chrisean and Blueface, They're living that every day. That's their norm. So to answer your question, is it really toxic? It's toxic. It just doesn't feel toxic to the people involved, not to mention the substance abuse stuff.
So I'm gonna be a true millennial right now, right? Because I understand what it is that they're doing. Chrisean, so let's look at Chrisean's lineage, right? I was watching some videos on the internet. She's been on numerous reality shows before she met him. She's been chasing fame and fortune through entertainment for a long time. So now she stumbles upon this man who they publicized one argument and then everybody was excited to look and watch what they're doing, right? So now my question to you is it truly toxic or is it entertainment? So let's remove them from it and actually look into a normal relationship, a normal couple, right? Toxic behavior, right? We're talking about a woman who has been with a man. She has a child with a man. Her child calls her at 2 o'clock in the morning and the man don't want to talk to the kid. Why you calling me at 2 o'clock in the morning? Well, your child want to talk to you. Why it's 2 o'clock in the morning, don't call me, click. Those are examples of toxicity, right? Not what we are perpetuating in social media and in entertainment cycles as if that is the poster child for toxic relationships. That is perpetuating a stereotype to make our black and brown children think that that's cool.
Well, guess what?
I'm gonna take a sip on that one.
We are living in the midst of a culture where toxicity has become the norm, right? So our children are looking at it and they are mimicking what they see, which means at some point they are they're being programmed, right? To think that for two people to love one another, there has to be physical violence. For two people to love one another, we have to both be participating in certain things. So you're right. It has become entertainment. The bad side of it is that it's not just entertainment. It's entertainment that is programming our children. It's becoming a learned behavior in relationships. Because guess what? When you know better, you do better. But if all you see is toxicity and all you see is dysfunction, then guess what? That's what you do, right? So unfortunately, it is a lot of our black and brown children, but I'm not going to sit here and help perpetuate a stereotype that it's just us who are perpetuating this toxic behavior. Because white people are doing it too, Hispanic people are doing it too. It has become an entire culture, right? And it's not race specific and it's not gender specific.
I'm gonna push back on that because you don't really see many of the other cultures, for lack of better terms, parading that behavior around, right? You watch the Love After Lockup show, right? Majority of them is brothers and sisters, right? You're watching Chrisean Rock, right? It's mostly brothers and sisters, right? You're watching Hot Girl Summer and promoting women taking advantage of men in their financial situations. It's almost like we are the only ones that are pushing these negative things onto our society, right? So I want to be careful on the fact that, yes, we want to talk about Chrisean Rock and Blueface, but there's real toxicity happening. There's real situations where people feel stuck and they're struggling to get out of situations, but they feel like they can't get out of situations. They're getting paid. For every view on those videos, they're getting paid. So of course, they're not going to stop the bag. They're going to get worse, and they're going to get even more entertaining. I guarantee you behind closed doors, they're not like that. They jump on live, they jump on here, and it's not like that, right? But there's real people waking up every day and that are having issues where they got to go on their phone, and they so locked in it, they got to sneak and text people through their phone that make them actually feel happy because they stuck in a situation, and they playing situationships, right?
Well, I want to first just agree that there are a lot of people who are trying to get out of toxic relationships. That's number one. But let me just say this for give you some shock factor. Okay. They probably are that way off camera, the same way Bobby and Whitney that way off camera. It just so happened that we got a chance to, to witness it on camera. But that's who they were on and off camera. I'd be willing to put some money on the fact that that's who Chrisean and Blueface are on and off camera. The girl is walking around with no tooth. Right,
but that's her personality. That's become her persona.
But guess what?
That's like Prince
Is it her personality?
That's her
but is it her personality as a sober, emotionally healthy young woman, or is it her reality as a young woman who is knee deep in substance abuse? And in all actuality, if you listen to some of the things she says and the way she has attached herself to Blueface and the number of tattoos that she has of his face and his name and those are all indicators that she came into the relationship broken. Right? And so where you said people arrive in toxic relationships and don't get out because they're weak, I beg to differ. People arrive in toxic relationships because the person that comes to the relationship with the toxicity, they prey on people who are broken, right? And so normally people who are broken, they looking for, you ready? For love in all the wrong places, right? And so sometimes they're looking for some type of validation. And sometimes they just get hoodwinked, bamboozled, and led astray. Okay. And then they find themselves in the relationship, and it's like, oh my goodness, what did I get myself into? Mm-hmm. And then you have other people who may identify some of these toxic traits, and they think that they're gonna change them. Yeah. They looking at potential instead of the reality of what is, right? So. I think that what we need to try to shift into, let's pivot and see if we can begin to talk about, how do you begin to navigate through a toxic relationship? Because these are relationships that I'm sure after you spend some time in those relationships, you got to be emotionally drained. You have to be. I know when I found myself in a toxic relationship, I was emotionally drained, and we weren't even, it wasn't even a long period of time, right? But you're drained because it's a constant work. You think it's not work. It has to be work to feel disrespected or to be disrespected on a consistent basis. It has to be work to find yourself trying to navigate through somebody's lies, right? It has to be work to try to navigate through somebody's attempts to control, right? All that stuff it gotta be exhausting.
Yeah, I can see how that would be.
Yeah, so with that being said, let's pivot and let's start to look at some real solutions that men and women, because remember we said it's not gender specific, right? Because I believe that Chrisean is toxic, and that's not to say Blueface don't have issues, because I had a conversation and the person was saying, well, don't be fooled by him because he looks like a nice guy, but he's a piece of work too.
Well, he's a clout chaser. Right. Again, but I'm not going to go back to what I was just saying, but you got to understand that he had one or two songs, right? One or two, right? Now he's trying to hold on to his fame, So I want us to be careful when we're talking about this to kind of move. I would love for us to move away from them, because I honestly feel like they are just doing it for entertainment purposes. I want us to focus in on like real individuals, because there's so many people, like you said, out here that are suffering through it. Men that are feeling that way, women that are feeling that way, that aren't doing it for the clout, aren't doing it for the paycheck. They're doing it for free. You know what I'm saying? And they're doing it for free.
Well, so how about the young people that are looking at them and they're in toxic relationships, and then they watch them and they say, oh, it has to be cool. It can't be as bad as I think it is, because everybody's giving them attention. And these people, they're in the spotlight, and their relationship is just as toxic as mine, if not more. What about those people who look at that? So I think it's important for us to look at somebody like Chrisean and Blueface, because those are people that are in the spotlight. Yeah. Those are people that this next generation are looking at, right? Because newsflash, that next generation, they looking for touchable, tangible stuff. So if all you see that's touchable and tangible is dysfunction, again, This is learned behavior. And when I say learned behavior as far as what we accept, what becomes acceptable. Right?
So as we're talking about solutions, I want to give a first solution. Ready?
Okay.
We're not going to judge our relationships on what we see on social media, on what we personally or friends of ours post on social media.
High five.
All right. So here's what we're gonna do.
High five.
Because there's actually, and I can't quote the exact percentage, but I read an article and they said that the percentage of couples that do not post their relationships on social media are actually the real happy relationships.
Yeah, I believe that.
And they say that the ones that are always posting, oh, we're out to eat, or we're here, or we're there, or we're doing this together, they have to do that because that's the only thing they're really holding on to. So I guess my first thing to individuals that are in toxic relationships, stop looking at what people are doing on social media. It's a front. It's a front. I've never been that person.
I agree with you, Chris. I agree because right now the person that I see, there's no indication that I'm seeing anybody anywhere.
And it doesn't need to be there.
And it's not going to be. It's not going to be.
Where is it said in society that we have to post and provide play-by-plays with our relationships?
But guess what happens? Life experience and wisdom kind of teach you that. You know, thank goodness you seem to have gotten that lesson and held on to it a lot earlier than some other people do, right? But I do agree. Like, stop looking for social media. Like, it's fake, people.
It's fake.
90% of it, 95% of it is fake.
Listen, Steve Harvey said it the best when I went to see Family Feud. He said, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I don't care what you see on TV. If they label it reality, if it's drama, whatever it is, it's 1,000% scripted and fake to bring you what you want to see.
Example, how many takes did we do just to figure out what the opening was going to be for the podcast today, right? So though this conversation is authentic, the opening today, like how do we do our first opening for our podcast, right? We had to practice that, right? Times. We did it a few times.
Craig was running back and forth trying to figure out what was going on.
We got frustrated. We screamed. I screamed. You screamed. We all screamed for ice cream.
But there was no ice cream.
But nonetheless, Chris, you're right. We don't pay attention to social media. Social media will have you trying to emulate something that's not real.
That's right.
Right? What's next?
Well, let me hear some from a seasoned woman. What do you think?
I think the next thing that you need to do is identify all of the traits within that relationship that are toxic. Like how we just talked about the controlling stuff. Look at your relationship. Ask yourself, does he try to control me? Does he try to tell me where to go, how to go, you know, what to wear, what not to wear, how to have my hair, how not to have my hair? If he does, those are toxic behaviors because those are identifying markers of someone who is insecure.
Well, it's toxic masculinity because a lot of those things of controlling our women were put on us throughout the ages. You make sure they're dressed. You make sure they're put together. You make sure you're leading them in this. Lead, direct. And then, of course, as things happen, things spiral out of control, right? And there's some men that would say, well, Chris, I disagree with you. You're not a real man, right? If you don't stand up and direct and lead and direct, you're not a real man, right? And that's what we as men deal with. So when you see certain men perpetuating that behavior of, I'm controlling my woman, I'm your master, right? That's kind of like what society has always taught us to be. You're the master of your family, right?
But know that those are characteristics of someone who's really insecure.
So that means the entire male species is insecure, right?
But the entire male species doesn't do that.
I know right? now because we've moved. Because my generation has put in the work. My generation put in the work. We are no longer going to be those type of men.
But guess what, sweetheart? Men from my generation, they don't all do that. Right? The insecure men do that.
So let me ask you a question. In your relationship, right? Do you feel like you have to cook your husband a meal when he comes home?
No, I don't feel that let me put this right. Because see, I'm from an era where I cook. right? And I don't just cook for my man. I cook for the people that I love and care about, right? So you're at a place, your generation, you don't like gender roles. I'm very comfortable, right? No, I'm very comfortable in the role of the nurturer. I'm comfortable in that role. And so the same way you are comfortable and don't want to be stuck in gender specified roles, right? I don't want somebody to tell me that I shouldn't do that because I enjoy cooking for the people that I love. So do I feel that I have to do that? I don't feel that the person I'm in a relationship with forces me to do that. As a matter of fact, he'll tell me quite the contrary. Don't do that. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that, right? But I'll get up and do it because guess why? Because that's something that I do that's an act of love toward the people that I care and love. But that's my love language. Do you understand?
But some people will call that servitude to a man. You're a servant. So I remember this meme, Ashley showed it to me earlier. It was like, I can't remember exactly what it said, but it was like, women want something and men want servants. And if everybody was self-sufficient, it wouldn't be something like that, right? And I can't remember it. I'm sorry I'm misquoting it. But it was really powerful because it actually touched on a lot of the negative things that go into these super toxic relationships. It becomes you're not self-sufficient or I have to rely upon this woman because I can't do something or I can't. So let's say I get into a toxic relationship with a woman who makes more money than me and now she's holding that above me. Basically I'm trapped because I feel like that woman needs to take care of me and now I feel like I can't move out. And if I leave this, I'm going to have to fall on my face to elevate. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that's another step. We get away from the social media and we get away from what society has deemed what relationships should be. It should be a natural flowing connection between
organic.
Exactly.
But be specific to say that word, organic. Yeah. And here's what I say. Though I don't agree with relationships that where the woman doesn't do certain domestic things, that's just my viewpoint. Yeah. And so the same way, your generation, you guys don't want to be put in gender-specified roles, right? And you want us to respect that. You want my generation to respect that. Then I would say from my generation to your generation, then you need to respect the fact that that's what we do, right? And we're not gonna stop doing that. Like I cook and I clean, and again, that's not my entire love language, but that's part of my love language, right? Cooking, and not just my love language toward my significant other, but my love language toward my children and soon to be my grandchildren. That's what I do. I cook. I like to keep the house clean. I like to make a comfortable environment for the people that I love and care about.
So what about the people that love language?
And that's not toxic.
But let me ask you a question. Since we start jumping into love languages, what about the individuals that love language is those negative things? Some people look forward to that. Some people have those relationships where they like that. They like for a man to dominate them and mistreat them. But
guess what?
And I honestly feel like that's what sometimes with the two individuals that we started talking about do.
Yeah, but again, it's only toxic if we can look at it and say that we feel these things. What type of feelings are evoked by the things that take place in your relationship? The lies. You comfortable with lies? I beg to differ. You're not gonna find a lot of men or women that would say that they're comfortable in a relationship where they can't trust the things that their significant other talks about, right? Lies don't make you feel good. Disrespect is never gonna make you feel good, right? So again, anything that makes you feel uncomfortable to the point where you're exhausted from your relationship. And I guess what I'm being told is that we're going to be continuing this discussion. We're going to continue to chop it up about toxic relationships, and it's good that we have these two viewpoints, the viewpoint from my generation versus the viewpoint from your generation. So we're going to continue to chop it up on our next segment of The Real Romanay.
All right.
Thanks for coming on, boo-boo. You going to come back?
Yeah, as long as you had some food. You didn't have no food this time. I was waiting for some snacks.
This, bro.
I thought we was going to chat, chew, and and chop it up.
No, I didn't say anything about chewing. Okay.
Love you, mother. Love
Peace.